Systemic racism in the York Regional Police. This is the overview for our presentation. The York Regional Police Department was founded on January 1st, 1971, which were the formative years marked with growth and significant challenges that impacted the department's ability to serve the community and address issues of systemic racism. As the York Regional Police Department took its first steps, it did so with limited resources, including small workforces, basic infrastructure, and a modest budget. Policing in a growing and diverse region with these constraints was a challenge. Limited resources often meant stretched capacities, making it more challenging to serve the community effectively. The region's growth brought people from various backgrounds and cultures to settle in the York region. Policing this diverse community required a different approach to understand and serving the unique needs of the population effectively. One crucial element of the department's mission was ensuring all community members felt equally protected and respected. To address the challenges of the rapid growing population, the York Regional Police Department embraced community policing strategies. Community policing aims to enforce the law and foster the trust and positive interactions between the police and the public. This approach plays a crucial role in mitigating issues related to systemic racism and ensuring that law enforcement was sensitive in the needs of a diverse community. Another critical aspect of managing the rapidly growing population was resource allocation. This department had to effectively distribute resources to cover a larger geographical area to serve the growing community. Strategic planning and resource management became essential for meeting the increased demand of police services. Overall, the early years of the York Regional Police Department were characterized by extraordinary growth and significant challenges. These challenges prompted the adoption of community policing and strategic resource allocation. These initiatives played a crucial role in ensuring that the police department could address the needs of a growing and diverse community that contributes to the reducing issues related to systemic racism.
Brought to the forefront of discussions on policing by the Black Lives Matter movement and the police killing of George Floyd, systemic racism has been a large concern in the last several years. In Ontario, data suggests that Black individuals are more likely to have discriminatory practices committed against them than other groups of Canadians. In police interactions, Black Canadians have higher rates of profiling, arrests, and the use of force. These increased interactions with police can be partly attributed to the over-policing of Black neighborhoods. This has contributed to the distrust of the police in Black communities as they fear punishment over minor incidents. Even in what many consider to be the most extreme form of policing, the use of firearms, Black Ontarians make up 70% of victims of police shootings that result in death. As for the York Service itself, it has experienced its own set of issues relating to systemic racism. For instance, in its use of force report, the York Regional Police have seen a disproportionately high number of Black individuals experience some use of force at 21% of 230 uses. Moreover, when a new study revealed discriminatory practices happening in the region, the police service claimed that they were staying the course on a plan to address these issues. However, even within the department, there are issues as Black officers of the York Regional Police have come forward with allegations of racism from higher-ranking officers claiming they experienced bullying and discriminatory treatment. As such, York policing needs to address the issues of racism in and around its police service.
Funding plays a large role in how police services conduct themselves. This is based upon which areas are funded the most versus the least, and who has access to these resources needed to make communities safer. The Police Service Board this year approved the net budget for York Police of $391.5 million, which was said to be an increase of 3.9% compared to last year. This funding is said to go to multiple different areas, such as the addition of 41 new members who will be deployed in services such as investigative, organized crime and intelligence, legal, community, professionalism, leadership, and executive services. This new budget is supposed to go toward key aspects of violent and serious crimes, supporting the organizational and transformation, and continue the focus on safer communities. As well, it includes new community support officers and civilian roles. The board also approved a capital budget of $26.9 million with capital spending authority for multiple year projects of $32.6 million. This budget will allow for things such as technological innovations, replacing vehicles, facility renovations, and specialized equipment. However, we saw no mention of funding towards areas such as diversity training, weapons training, de-escalation, mental health services, or any services that could be seen as helping curb the problem of racism in the York Police.
Alternative proposal. It's also important to address as many solutions as possible when resolving the issues and concerns that people within the community bring to the police's attention. Issues regarding anti-Black bias and significant equity inclusion gap problems were reported in the York Regional Police Organization, as well as reports of disproportionate use of force by York Police towards people of color. Even with all these issues being brought to light, York Regional Police still have a long way to go in terms of resolving and regaining the trust of the community. Ideas like town hall meetings and community outreach programs can help build a trustful relationship between police and the community. Police organizations should be making an effort to hold their officers accountable while also implementing a type of independent body that is there to investigate the complaints by the public. It is also important that police organizations like York Regional Police acknowledge that there's still racism in their organizations despite multiple different efforts to abolish it. By publicly acknowledging that racism is still an issue within their organization, they can show the community that they are ready and willing to make the necessary changes that will create a brighter and safer future.
What are the next steps for York Regional Police? The recommendations for addressing systemic racism in the York Police Force are mainly based on proactive measures and fundamental shifts in approach. A stronger commitment to community policing is essential. This would involve the fostering of more positive interactions between York Police and the communications they serve in. Implicit bias training would be aimed at assisting officers recognize and address unconscious bias that have the potential to influence their decisions in a negative manner. Resource reallocation would assist with directing funding away from traditional law enforcement initiatives and instead putting it towards social services and more community-based programs that promote a more comprehensive approach to public safety. In regards to the plan for action, the focus is primarily on accountability and oversight. Holding officers accountable for acts of misconduct is key in this plan. Ensuring that transparency and accountability are primary concerns for improvement is the main issue being addressed here. Having more frequent audits and reviews of the police department's conduct is essential in identifying and addressing any systemic issues. With the use of these frequent reviews, this will establish a system that measures ongoing improvement in the York Police Service. Implementing community-based programs and initiatives promotes collaboration and engagement with the community to build trust and work together to address systemic racism in the police force. The combined efforts of these recommendations and a well-executed plan for action offer a more equitable and just law enforcement system that can mend the issue of systemic racism in the York Police Service.
There are many opportunities for improvement available to York Police. With pre-existing relationships with nonprofit organizations such as the Herbert H. Carnegie Future Aces Foundation in place, York Police can capitalize on these relationships. Within this relationship specifically, there's room for advancement and wider outreach. This community relationship is a way to recognize young people who display the fundamentals of ACEs, which is attitude, cooperation, example, and sportsmanship, in order to share their good deeds with a larger audience. To alter this approach, York Police can plan their focus on neighborhoods and communities in the region that display high rates of diversity. This initiative could have the potential to shift the perspective of police into a more positive light. This has the potential to positively change the idea that police are nothing more than law enforcement. Further, a major step in the right direction would be to publicly acknowledge the widespread understanding with statistical evidence in circulation that racism is currently active within York Police. By addressing systemic racism and numerous cases of disproportionate use of force and strip searches in a public manner, York Police can display to the region and the widespread community that they're willing and able to begin a transparent dialogue regarding this pressing issue. The Toronto Police Service, in collaboration with the Ontario Human Rights Commission, did exactly that with the statement below, and we encourage York to follow suit. A constraint to the above opportunity could be any pre-existing negative beliefs or experiences with uniformed officers. The presence of uniformed officers within school and community settings could cause more harm than good, even with intended positive outcomes. In the article by Clevenger et al., they made note of elevated levels of fear interacting with police amongst identity groups who have historically faced mistreatment by the police. This is where our plan of action involving proper oversight comes into play, where decision makers within York Police must connect with the properly educated organizations and community leaders to gain insight. A constraint to publicly addressing systemic racism within York Police is the notion of staying the course, as we mentioned earlier. This is not a plan of action and potentially disregards the experiences of many people of color, further establishing a distrust in the police service. Decision makers within York Police must change this narrative in order to begin any meaningful change. At this time, we thank you all for listening to our presentation, and we're happy to answer any questions you may have.